Thank you, Nian. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, NSF. And I will talk more on the wearable. I'm not a pathogen guy. I'm a biosensor, wearable sensor guy. And we'll talk about the potential tools that can allow you to fight and predict. So you can see my screen. So
We
we'll
can
see
do.
how continuous non-invasive remote medicine can address these global diagnostic gaps. So again, we saw that we highlight the pandemic highlight the limitation of our system, especially it's poorly equipped to monitor continuously and remotely, especially low-income population. And then most of the testing usually takes days to produce results. So the question, how can we improve the diagnostic while reducing exposure of our healthcare worker, and how to address the limitation of all this COVID-19 monitoring and diagnostic. Actually, it was good for the accelerating telemedicine. So the COVID-19 actually pushed the field, the importance of self-monitoring and home testing. And again, a patient for self-monitoring, we want to address critical needs of doing this testing, warning for early warning before the symptom occur, and saving life. Now, one example you're all familiar is the glucose meter. This is over 25 million just in the US. So do the self-testing, home testing of blood glucose intake, 10 seconds to monitor 1 microliter of blood. And this is again because of the scope of diabetic. Question, can we develop similar devices for monitor other disease biomarker and eventually to on-site home testing of infection? So we'll talk about the wearable, and you saw all the evolution and revolution of digital health over the past 2 decades, all the Fitbit and all the vital sign, mobility, steps, calorie. And the question, can we go beyond the vital sign and monitor biochemistry? Can we look at starting with glucose, starting with other electrolyte, metabolite, cortisol, and do it continuously 24/7 and get information about the molecular information. So this is what we have in the market at the moment: ECG, EEG, some blood pressure, steps and calorie. We would like to fill the gap in monitoring, and not only glucose, obviously, but also even eventually cytokine and cortisol and lactate and a variety of electrolyte and other metabolite. So this is a great opportunity, also challenges of biofouling and stability of bioreceptor. We rely on electrochemical sensor like the one we use for glucose, also the new one from Dexcom or Abbott, the glucose CGM monitoring. They're all highly sensitive, low cost, mass producible, and portable. So you're all familiar with the glucose meter or the Dexcom one, the other one for emergency room from Abbott, the pH sensing, and so on. And this field has been now for 5 decades since the introduction of glucose sensor in the 60s, then glucose strip in the 90s, and became for more DNA sensor in the 90s, immunosensor in the 80s, and then the wearable over the past decade. All type of gadget for sweat, saliva, tears, completely non-invasively. And by doing so, we can analyze not only, we get rid of the blood, we can analyze sweat, saliva, tear, devices like tattoo, mouse guard, contact lenses. But the goal is to obtain information about molecular biomarker continuously in real time for prediction and prevention. And again, metabolites are playing important role. Metabolite like glucose, lactate, urea, even in sweat, they can have a direct correlation to the COVID-19 severity. So monitoring metabolite continuously can predict the severity of COVID-19. And we've been doing a glucose a lot more for the diabetic, but more recently in connection with the COVID-19. So this is a tattoo that you can monitor non-invasively, glucose from ISF, you print it on a tattoo paper, you transfer it to the skin like this, it costs about 10 cents, and you just extract the ISF and you get the biomarker to the surface in a non-invasive without any finger stick blood. So this is a printed tattoo. This is a slow motion, but the way it is look like this. And then you interface with the electronic and you can do the sensing of glucose every 10 minutes non-invasively. Vitamins are extremely important, again, for improving, boosting the immune system and reducing the risk of infection, especially vitamin D and C. So we are working with major companies like DSM or Pepsi to detect nutrient supplements, especially containing C and D, to monitor them continuously toward personalized nutrition so we can predict the profile different people. This is the tattoo for vitamin C, ascorbic acid in sweat, a paper published recently, and showing the personal temporal trends of sweat vitamin C for different people. And this can be used to guide the diet and improving the diet. We are doing the same for vitamin D. Then we combine this another tattoo for, again, for carbohydrate and alcohol, a panda-shaped tattoo, but in 10 minutes you can monitor both a level of carbohydrate and alcohols in both ISF and in sweat. This is a paper just came out yesterday in Nature Bioengineering. And again, diagnosis of one analyte or one symptom is not enough to diagnose a disease like COVID-19 or sepsis. So we are combining a variety. This is a patch that we just described yesterday, where you can analyze the blood pressure and glucose or lactate on the skin. So it's, again, management of blood pressure and diabetic are extremely important because these are major factor in the severity of COVID-19, obesity, hypertension, and diabetic. So in this paper, we show how we can interface this on a single tattoo and do both blood pressure and glucose and other biomarker in sweat in ISF. It looks like this. It's a stem size tattoo, and it's all non-invasive monitor of the cardiovascular signal, blood pressure, and heart rate, and multiple biomarker like sweat glucose and lactate, all in a stem size tattoo. Another paper where we show coupling of biomarker with ECG. This is 2 years ago, where we monitor on the same tattoo, all printed at low cost, monitoring the biomarker in a biosensor here and the ECG electrode on a single patch. More recently, we moved to lab under the skin using microneedle array. So here we have an array of 12 microneedle that can be monitored individually, 12 analyte. This is multiplex detection of multiple biomarkers just under the skin, can provide you a complete lab under the skin, metabolite, electrolyte, and eventually also cytokines, for example. So this is example for a major project on diabetic, where we monitor simultaneously 4 biomarkers for diabetic: glucose, ketone, lactate, and alcohol. So again, this is 8 millimeter diameter, and you see 4 sensors with a joint reference electrode. And this is example for this paper showing the ketone, 3-hydroxybutyrate, and glucose on 2 neighboring microneedles. So it's again give you a lab under the skin, and we are expanding it to cytokine and other protein biomarker. Now we mentioned the glucose, and we would like to have a glucose type sensor for other biomarker for on-site detection of diseases, immunoassay, DNA one. Again, we leverage now a lot of smartphone and cloud to data processing, communication, improving the care and prediction. So a lot of activity of multiplex electrochemical sensor. These are in vitro, decentralized, that you can do at low cost on the site, measurement in less than 20 minutes. This is a work from Caltech, from my former student, Wang, which is shown actually this one, where we show you can predict 3 different COVID-19 biomarker, both the S protein, you can the IgG antibody, and also inflammatory biomarker like CRP or protein. But overall, they show the ability to multiplex. You can have an array of immunosensor, enzyme-based immunoassay, HRP or alkaline phosphatase with 64 electrode, do high throughput, long course prediction. Again, this example of, again, printed electrode at HRP-based enzyme immunoassay, sandwich immunoassay that you can, again, look for CRP cytokine in a matter of 15-20 minutes. So these are all low-cost, mass-produced, can be screen printed or sputter, but again, extremely like the glucose sensor. The only thing, it takes a little longer. Instead of 10 seconds, it takes 20 minutes. But now you can do the immunoassay in decentralized setting, 4 different biomarkers using this low-cost home testing. So again, we show this example from Caltech, or another example from Italy, again, printed electrode with magnetic separation, and you can see result in less than 15 minutes. So overall, I hope that I gave you a flavor of the opportunity of using wearable sensor and decentralized sensor for getting molecular information. And this can be coupled with blood pressure, other cardiac monitor. We need to expand it now to more protein biomarker, nucleic acid, to do it in the field or in the house, toward improving the role of personalized medicine, telemedicine. So there are a lot of tools and a lot of opportunity, just starting with the glucose and moving all the way to protein, nucleic acid, and so on. So again, my time is running out, and I'll thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.